What are the latest AFC news, notes, and rumors you need to know before the NFL scouting combine this week? And what are the latest updates on Russell Wilson and Lamar Jackson? It's time to find out right here, right now, as we begin another edition and another week of Locked On Fantasy Football.
Are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL and fantasy football for SportingNews.com. Big week ahead. The NFL Scouting Combine will be in Indianapolis, so I have a lot more on the draft this week. I do have a two-round mock draft you can check out. Yep, 2 rounds all the way through 64 overall. Yeah, incredible that we're almost at the NFL draft, just 2 months away now, right now. So great to know that we're turning the page to the NFL offseason. A lot of stuff to come in free agency as well. You can check out my top 50 free agents there at Sporting News, as well as my big board of the top 125 prospects overall for the draft. So we'll get a lot more into the draft, but we're going to set the table for the combine. We know it's a big meeting of all the NFL GMs and scouting kind of responsible guys, and as well as the coaches. So we're going to get a lot of talking and wheeling and dealing potentially there at the combine, things going forward with the quarterback situations that we're looking forward to, whether it's a contract extension or potential trade. So we should get some movement on those things here as we get into March. So we'll catch you up today on the AFC news and notes you need to know. We'll come back, barring any breaking news, with the NFC news and notes. So we'll all be on watch here for Derek Carr and Aaron Rodgers if something happens there. I'll give you the latest on those quarterbacks, as well as Russell Wilson and Lamar Jackson. That'll be part of today's show as we look at the AFC. We'll go in alphabetical order with all 16 teams for both conferences here over the next couple shows. So looking forward to doing that with you. Thanks again for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. We're free and available to you on all platforms. All right, it is time to break down what we have going on in the AFC. The Ravens coming up. Lamar Jackson apparently wants his entire contract and guaranteed money, a la Deshaun Watson and what he got from an AFC North rival, the Browns, last year. There were different circumstances we know about Watson's contract. There were contingencies and outs, but the bottom line is Deshaun Watson still got that money right away and signing all guaranteed. So Jackson's looking at that and said, why don't I get that? I've been a league MVP before. I put up some numbers here that are pretty big. The Ravens might be balking at that because that's a big investment overall beyond the salary cap. So something the Ravens have to shake out here and figure out if they can make it work with Lamar Jackson, or they have to franchise tag and trade him. The franchise tag well under what Lamar is looking for, the $45 million floor there for his long-term deal per season. So that's something they're going to have to sort out, and they're going to have to make a decision soon if they want to go in that direction with Jackson or move on. And they've made some interesting hires here. They've got Todd Monken there as their offensive coordinator, so that is going to maybe either hurt or help Lamar. We're not quite sure if he was involved too much in the process, but Monken is a run-heavy type offense coordinator who was going to trust Lamar's running ability the way that Greg Roman did. So they definitely are in place should they bring back Jackson in this offense, but definitely something we'll have to see develop here going forward for the Ravens. But yeah, right now they're really apart on that guaranteed money, and that's what it comes down to. So is that going to be a big enough rift here to say he's out of Baltimore, or the Ravens cave into that? They typically don't do that with their contracts here, or really no team has done that except the Browns. So we'll see. The Browns are kind of messing with the Ravens here, division rival, and what they did with the precedent for Watson last year. So things to watch there. And Lamar still is about 50-50 here, depending on whether the Ravens will accommodate that, because Jackson has been pretty consistent and adamant about getting that. And it makes sense. If that's out there, as a potential and you feel like you've outplayed that other person who's getting it, then you're going to feel like that. So it could hold up a lot of these quarterback contract deals as we go forward. Now we go from Baltimore to Buffalo, and the Bills are figuring out their backfield here. Devin Singletary is a free agent. Nyheim Hines, they picked up in the trade with the Colts, with the Zach Moss going to Indianapolis. They have to decide if Nyheim Hines is worth keeping here. They do have James Cook as a very explosive runner and a very adept receiver. So Hines might be superfluous to keep in their offense. Singletary also might be not worth re-signing even at a reasonable contract. They might want to go in a different direction, maybe get a rookie or a younger power back to pair with Cook. That's something they can consider. I don't think they'll go after Bijan Robinson or Jahmyr Gibbs. Robinson out of Texas, Gibbs out of Alabama, the top two running backs in the draft. But I could see them going in a slightly different direction there and finding a power back in the draft. So something to look at for sure. With the Bills moving on and remixing this backfield, Cook could be set up for a pretty big role here in 2023. All right, let's go to the Bengals. This one was a bit of a surprise here. There are some thoughts that Joe Mixon may need to be released unless he agrees to a pay cut to help their salary cap structure here. They got to pay Joe Burrow. They got to pay T. Higgins right now. There are no thoughts of trading T. Higgins. They want to extend him and keep him there with Jamar Chase and Burrow, but Higgins with the Burrow and Chase contracts coming up, that could be difficult. So they need to create some cap room. That could create some casualties here unless there's some major restructures all around here to help that. But Joe Mixon is one of them because they do have Samaje Perine. They like him in third down situations with his protection and pass catching. They do have Chris Evans. They've got some depth at running back. They can always go get another running back as well. Mixon has been very productive the past 2 years with Joe Burrow. But could they get a better value and not spend that much money on a running back and maybe get a restructured deal for Mixon to keep him around? So something to watch there for sure. I wouldn't say that's imminent, but there are some thoughts that they could cut Mixon here and go forward with different backs to really think more about their passing game with the big three of Burrow, Chase, and Higgins in their contracts. So every bit of money helps for the Bengals to make this happen. They are sometimes known as a tight spending team, but they have a core now to go after it with Burrow, Chase, and Higgins. So that's what's gotten them to win a lot of games, get to the Super Bowl, get to another AFC championship game. So definitely we're going to watch those situations here for what the Bengals do with their offensive skill players out of necessity. The Browns are changing up their offense and defense here. You got Jim Schwartz coming over, so he's going to install that 4-3. The pass rush really dependent on the edge here, so he's going to be a help to Myles Garrett. They also lose some help there in the passing game here with Drew Getzing. He's the quarterback's coach for Watson. He moves on to Kyler Murray as the offense coordinator with the Cardinals. They're replacing Cliff Kingsbury and that staff. So Stefanski maybe having more of an imprint on this offense going forward, and Jim Schwartz coming in complimentary with his defensive play calling here. The Browns don't have a lot of issues. I think you might see a change in the backfield with Kareem Hunt and Dearness Johnson potentially both leaving here as free agents. They're not interested in all bringing back Johnson so far. Kareem Hunt, has been a little buzz about that. So you could see Nick Chubb step into a bigger role here, be a running-oriented team, playing off the defense a little bit more to control the clock and to help Deshaun Watson open things up there downfield with a full season of a top quarterback. The last team we'll talk about in this segment, the Denver Broncos. What a change for one Russell Wilson. Sean Payton comes in there. Not a surprise that he tapped Joe Lombardi, fresh off being fired from the Chargers and working with Justin Herbert, to reunite with him. They were together in New Orleans. Lombardi cut his teeth there with Pete Carmichael Jr. and Sean Payton in New Orleans. So now you've got his thinking and philosophies coming to Denver. That means it's good news for the running backs in the pass game. Hopefully Javonte Williams can come back healthy, being efficient there. We saw how they supported Chris Olave and Mike Williams, some of the big plays there in different spots there with Peyton and Lombardi. So that's not bad, I think. It'll get Russell Wilson to get rid of the ball quicker. And again, this is something that is an interesting report here, that Lombardi was dismissed out of the Charger system because he wanted too much as a quarterback. Now, I think Russell Wilson actually might like that in this sense. So it's very interesting to think that he was fired for one thing that wasn't helping a young quarterback, but it actually could help a veteran quarterback, that he might actually let Russ cook here. So that's something to go with. And really, let's ride or let Russ cook. Might be in play a little bit more this season with Peyton and Lombardi there. And they got to figure out, do they want to move Cortland Sutton? There was a rumor of that, him being traded. But Jerry Jeudy was definitely Russell Wilson's clear go-to guy last year. You should have Greg Dulcich in a bigger role out of tight end. Tim Patrick coming back healthy. So we'll see where this offense goes. But I think Lombardi overall has a good makeup and experience there with Peyton to get the most out of Wilson here in the system. And Davis Webb is an interesting hire. He was a Giants one-time consideration. There's a second-round pick. But now he's a 28-year-old quarterback coach for Wilson. So really changing it up from what he had in Denver last year with Nathaniel Hackett. You have Lombardi and Webb here as a brain trust helping Peyton to get Wilson back on track after his many years in Seattle. So I do like this combination here. Maybe Wilson needs a little bit of a younger guy, maybe someone that he can work with versus work under at that spot. So that's probably going to help him. And then Lombardi being trusted to put a lot of trust here in Wilson's throwing. And I think he'll like that as well here in 2023 and going forward. So pretty decent hires there for the Broncos, given it was Peyton. We will look at the news and notes here for the other 11 teams in the AFC in our next couple segments. So next up, we'll go from the Houston Texans through the Los Angeles Chargers and close with the Miami Dolphins to the Tennessee Titans. We're going alphabetical order, all 16 teams here, catching up with the latest news and notes around the AFC and rumors that you need to be aware of here as we go into the NFL Scouting Combine, the latest convention-style atmosphere for all the NFL scouting departments. The midway point of the NBA season, it's just arrived here, just past the All-Star break, and it's the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. New customers can get a no-sweat first bet. That's right, no-sweat first bet there that you can check out, where you can put up your cash and know that you'll get some reward bets in return there. That's bonus bets. If your first bet doesn't win, you'll get up to $1,000 there. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point spreads and threes drained. Again, no sweat. First bet will get you $1,000 there back in FanDuel to go look at other sports and deals there. So good stuff for you as well. Really, there's a lot of fun NBA bets you can make. Kevin Durant's going to create a lot of buzz. We know, we talked about him being traded to the Suns. So good stuff with Devin Booker and what they can do scoring-wise every night. So that's a guy that you can attack. So you do points and rebounds combination with Kevin Durant that you can look at. So all kinds of fun stuff. But new player to new place really brings up different ways you can bet. Plus, FanDuel lets you even combine these bets for an even chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. So don't miss on the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more. It's FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, as well as the NFL and of the Locked On Network. All right, it is time to continue the show, looking at more news and notes here on a Monday here from the AFC teams. We're up with the Houston Texans. They're circling the wagons here to go after Jimmy Garoppolo. It's pretty evident here. They got D'Amico Ryans coming over, the former 49ers defense coordinator. He hires Bob Slowick. He was working with the 49ers under Kyle Shanahan as the offense coordinator. So this offense is familiar. Jimmy Garoppolo might be the bridge here that helps them. The Texans are sitting on 2 first-round picks, including number 2 overall. But when they go with the veteran direction, table quarterback, we can see that happening as well. It goes for best defensive player available, so they can get either Jalen Carter or Will Anderson Jr. to establish something extra here for the defensive-minded Saleh. We saw it worked out pretty for Ryans, I should say. I'm getting ahead of myself because Saleh did get Ahmad Sauce Gardner. And whether his name is Juice or Sauce, he was your defensive rookie of the year. What a special year. He was the Sporting News overall rookie of the year here. So really, you saw that with Gardner. You had Jermaine Johnson. You had some really good draft picks there. You got more out of Quinnen Williams. So you could see D'Amico Ryans following Saleh in Houston and going defense first with Carter or Anderson, and then going the veteran route at quarterback here to buy some time and hope that they can win around the quarterback. So copycat league, especially when you have the copycat experience, and Garoppolo could be on his way to Houston. They might be the top team right now for Garoppolo services. The Colts' big news is that Shane Steichen as an offensive coordinator is Jim Bob Cooter. So they're really getting into that quarterbacks mode here. Jim Bob Cooter's best success came with the Lions. We know Shane Steichen coming off a good run with the Eagles, and he also previously coached the Chargers. So a lot of things lining up here for the Colts taking that quarterback in the first round, whether he's C.J. Stroud or Anthony Richardson. The Colts are definitely all about looking at quarterback now. So I think that's how they're going to move on. They're not going to believe in Matt Ryan for another year. I could see Matt Ryan retiring and going to broadcasting as well. So the Colts, again, these are all good developments for them, taking a young franchise quarterback here at number 4 overall in the draft. The Jaguars are sorting things out here. Calvin Ridley can return here, so they're getting him back at wide receiver. Evan Ingram is likely to be re-signed to be brought back at tight end. So you have Calvin Ridley now. You got a new wide receiver coach there, Chad Hall. So that's really going to help this squad as well. So get Calvin Ridley. I think they'll move on from Marvin Jones as a free agent, but it's going to be good influence on Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, and Zay Jones, a pretty good trio here. That's why they want to keep Ingram intact here for Trevor Lawrence. So definitely the Jaguars wanting to push Lawrence forward, and they could have a big year here after making the playoffs, winning division with Lawrence last year in year 2. The Chiefs, they're going to move on from Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They've declined his option here. They just moved on. We know with Jerick McKinnon and Isaiah Pacheco. They're in the playoffs through Super Bowl 57. So Edwards-Helaire, good run, but he was scratched for the Super Bowl. He was inactive, not healthy. It just didn't work out as the Chiefs had intended. So he's going to be out there available for another team. Mecole Hardman coming off some surgery. He could be out for a while. He's a guy that could be on the move as well in free agency. So definitely the Chiefs going to have a little bit more offensive skill changes. They're not going to try to have a big change at left tackle. Orlando Brown Jr. is now a strong candidate to get the franchise tag there to play for one more season at least at left tackle. So something to look at there. And with Eric Bieniemy going to the Commanders, Matt Nagy back in a familiar role, the former Bears coach, is now once again the Chiefs offensive coordinator under Andy Reid. So again, Andy Reid, maybe Nagy is the better suited for that type of role here versus head coaching. We know how things went ugly quickly with Mr. Trubisky, but I think it's going to be a good influence. Familiarity, continuity continues here for Patrick Mahomes, even with losing Bieniemy in 2023 to the Commanders. The Raiders are deciding what they want to do to replace Derek Carr. They're open to all their quarterback options here after releasing him early in the offseason, but late in the season, knowing that he was out of his chances in Las Vegas with the team moving on with Jarrett Stidham, plugging a gap for the final couple games. So Derek Carr moving on. Josh Jacobs is okay with the franchise tag if that's the way the Raiders want to bring him back for 1 year. If they invest a lot in the other positions here to upgrade their team, so Jacobs wants to remain a Raider, but he wants some things around him to get better, no doubt, without a real quarterback option beyond Jarrett Stidham now. The Raiders need to prove some commitment there. They are also looking at Matt Collins and Jay Jones as free agents. We talked about them with an uncertain receiving core. They need some help behind Devontae Adams and Hunter Renfrow, and Darren Waller getting a little bit older. He's still very productive, but it's a decent situation for a quarterback. Jacobs wants more investment here to help this offense. If he's going to stay, I'd be happy about staying in Las Vegas. Last team we'll tackle in this segment, the Los Angeles Chargers. There is a potential for some salary cap cuts here. Gerald Everett seems like the most likely candidate here just because they've got some depth at tight end with Donald Parham Jr., and the guys going to make plays, Trey McKitty as well. Then you look at Keenan Allen making a good chunk of change here. He's integral to what they want to do with their underneath passing game with Justin Herbert, short to intermediate routes. But is it time to move on from Allen or ask for a pay cut and maybe sacrifice Everett for that reason? So some things to look at, and you would think with the Kel Moore coming in, I think you would want the key weapons for Herbert intact as much as possible. I think they can, again, plug and play and replace Herbert. It's really impossible to replace Allen, that veteran, savvy, possession receiver who gets open all over the field for his young quarterback. So something to keep in mind there. Speaking of Kellen Moore, he's got a new quarterbacks coach. It is Doug Nussmeier. He also comes over for the Cowboys. So Tim Kelly is there as well. So all these things that are going on that I look at with these offense coordinator changes, but I do like Kellen Moore moving up the most here. He also likes Brian Kelly at running back, or Joshua Kelly we look at. So Brian Kelly and these other coaches named Kelly, well, the Chargers select their running back named Kelly behind Austin Eckler. So that might keep them from wanting to invest too much there beyond Eckler and Kelly in the backfield, and maybe some changes coming at receiver and tight end here based on the salary cap situation for the Chargers. They also need to look at bringing back Trey Pipkins, the right tackle, so all these things come into play. So some new coordinators included Tim Kelly and Kelly out of LSU, and then you have Moore trying to combine some of their traits there with their running backs and receivers around Justin Herbert. So again, trying to get a little bit more explosive, but also balanced. And again, that was the thing. We saw that work out really well with the combination of Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott for Moore in Dallas. So you could see Eckler and Kelly being that combination here. And they didn't use the tight end as much. And then Dalton Schultz is probably being squeezed out of the mix there. So Everett could be out. They could be looking for more 11 personnel pop here with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams going forward. All right, there you have it. There's a breakdown of 6 more teams and the latest AFC news and notes from them. We'd have 5 more to talk about here before we close the show. Make sure to check out all the great shows here on the Locked On Network. We have Locked On NFL as well, our flagship show, breaking down the biggest stories around the league from a reality perspective purely. So check it out. It's Locked On NFL here on the network. It's time to close things with looking at 5 more teams and the latest AFC news and notes. We'll start with the Miami Dolphins. Raheem Mostert, there's a good chance they could bring him back over Jeff Wilson Jr. Both Mostert and Wilson are free agents, as well as figuring out what they want to do with Myles Gaskin. So Dolphins could blow up their backfield and go with a running back. Have them taking Devin Achane from Texas A&M there in the second round of the draft as a change of pace receiving back. So again, they like speed, open field stuff, quickness, zone blocking. We know Mostert and Wilson have that strong history with Mike McDaniel going back to San Francisco, but if you can find more of those style of backs on the cheap, they can definitely move on from both here at free agency. Mike Gesicki is fully expected to be moved on from. He was a little bit of a limited role last year, just being in the red zone and touchdown dependent. So I think Mike Gesicki is gone from Miami, so that should even boost further the value of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. There was just not a lot after them in the passing game for fantasy football production last year, and I think it could even grow stronger here in 2023. All right, let's go to the Patriots. Jacoby Myers is expected to command a pretty high contract, according to Mike Reese there, ESPN covering it. You look at it, you have Myers being the best target by far in free agency. He is my number 1 free agent ranked wide receiver. That should tell you something. But remember, Christian Kirk broke the bank because teams were desperate, and he was a slot guy that could play on the outside and make some big plays. He got some big money. He paid off for the Jaguars. So someone might be paying Jacoby Myers quite a bit here as the clear-cut, the veteran top option on the market. So good time maybe for Myers to test that and move on from the Patriots. Then you have Mac Jones. He's settling in the Bill O'Brien offense. He seems to like it so far. That's a good development, but they do need to get Jones help if Myers has to move on here. So that's going to be key. They just can't be so dependent on the running game with Ramondre Stevenson, especially with Damian Harris being a free agent. So a lot of things the Patriots need to sort out there. Now, let's go from the Patriots to Jets. The Jets did have Derek Carr in for a visit. They were really high on him and what he could do. Just didn't want to trade for him. So they're seeing if he might be the answer, and that could be an indication that they're not going to wait for Aaron Rodgers, or Rodgers is not going to materialize here. So we'll watch out for Carr. I think the better fit would be in different places, but I think the Saints would have probably made that move for Carr already. So the Jets might settle for Carr instead of Rodgers, much like the Raiders kind of had Carr as like a Rodgers light there, and he didn't really deliver with that expectation. So maybe he can with the change of identity here if he gets a supportive defense with Gardner and Williams and Johnson, some of the guys that Robert Saleh has. with the Jets and just taking advantage of the better skilled players, including Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore. So some familiar guys there, with Wilson potentially being his Devontae Adams and Moore being kind of a Hunter Renfrow type for him. They also have decent tight end situation with CJ Uzomah and Tyler Conklin. So the style and structure of the offense can't fit Derek Carr. It's a question, is he the best guy to give him that ceiling, or is he just going to give him a steady floor here at quarterback? All right, we move on to the Steelers, and in Pittsburgh, you have Mason Rudolph, I should say, looking for a job and potentially being brought back here for the Steelers. You could also see that Mitchell Trubisky is let go. That would really say they're all in on that Kenny Pickett. They don't need a contingency plan. Trubisky would be a cap casualty. Rudolph just wouldn't be signed here. So I'm going to watch there for sure how much the Steelers are high on Kenny Pickett. But overall, I think they're on this offense to have a big breakout season. You look at the pieces, they make a lot of sense. With George Pickens and Deontay Johnson, you have Pat Freiermuth, you got Najee Harris, a lot of good receiving pop all over through the backfield. Now, I think it's all about upgrading their offensive line. So we'll see if they let Kenny Pickett even more loose here with getting rid of the other backup options here in 2023. Finally, last team we'll talk about is the Titans. They left Taylor Lewan into releasing him, and you also had Robert Woods been cut here. So the Titans are in the market for some wide receiver help for the rookie first-rounder Traylon Burks from last year, as well as the tight end Chig Okonkwo. Justin Outen was the tight ends coach there in Green Bay before he moved on to the Broncos last year. He's been hired for the Titans, so that could be really good news here for Okonkwo going forward. So still going to be a run-type offense, we think. The Titans, again, they would be a sleeper team for two guys. Derek Carr, bring him in as kind of a caretaker playing off the run, and still Derrick Henry being a force in this offense and being a little bit more careful and calculated with Carr's passing, or Jimmy Garoppolo having the familiarity here of what they want to do in Tennessee with the Mike Vrabel and the connection to Tom Brady there as well. So a lot of things to watch out here for the Titans as they kind of remake their offense a little bit all around. So we'll see how they treat Henry. Is he still the workhorse and sets everything up, or are they going to have legitimate passing game here going forward with Henry taking more wear and tear and potentially slowing down at any moment with his high volume through his current age? So there you have it. There's a look at the latest news and notes from all 16 AFC teams ahead of the NFL scouting combine. So good stuff there for you. We'll come back from the NFC, barring any breaking news involving quarterbacks. We'll do that with all 16 teams, that conference tomorrow. Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. We're free and available to you on all platforms. Now make your second listen Locked On NFL Draft. Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez provide in-depth coverage of the biggest NFL draft prospects with deep dives into the sleepers and hidden gems that can change your favorite NFL franchise. Find Locked On NFL Draft wherever you get your podcasts, and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. For Locked On Fantasy Football, with our latest look at the AFC news and notes, has been Vinnie Iyer. We're Dan. We'll check you out next time with the AFC news and notes.